Hi, I'm Luie Rodriguez, and I'm here to talk about the fuel crisis. With the fuel crisis, many people have turned to alternative methods for fueling their car to save money and to reduce dependency on foreign oil and reduce emissions. Many people turn to hybrid and electric vehicles. However, my claim is that current hybrid and electric motors will fail to be the solution to the fuel crisis. My supporting claim is that current hybrid and electric motors, while they seem good, cause more harm to the environment than they save, are less reliable, and still draw their power from a fossil fuel. I'll prove this to you in three ways. First, I'll quickly go over the function and appeal of hybrid and electric vehicles. Second, I will identify some major issues with these vehicles. And third, I'll propose a solution. So back to my first point, how hybrid and electric vehicles work. Electric vehicles store an electric charge in a battery. They can get the electricity from almost any outlet, and they use this electricity to power a very efficient electric motor. Hybrid vehicles work in a very similar way, except for they also have a normal fossil fuel engine on board to recharge the batteries or propel the car itself. With incentives from the government and increased fuel savings, a lot of people think this is a great solution. However, this isn't true. This takes me to my second point, which are some major issues with these vehicles. Hybrid vehicles, since they are using gasoline, they're still burning fossil fuel, so they're still emitting from the tailpipe and still using fuel that we depend on other countries for. Both hybrid and electric vehicles rely heavily on harmful batteries. They're very hard to produce and mine, and electric vehicles get their power from a socket, and a lot of people don't know where's this power coming from. It's not true zero emissions when you get the power from a socket. According to Laura Williams in her article, Negative Environmental Impact of Hybrid Vehicles, in a study done by Ohio State University, if your city's state or power grid is fueled by coal or oil, you may end up emitting as much or more pollution as a traditional vehicle to power your car. This statement is supported by research done by the Institute for Energy and Environmental Research in Germany. Their data shows that over a life cycle of 150,000 kilometers of average use of conventional and diesel vehicles, they produce 36,000 and 32,000 kilograms of CO2, respectively. Now, for a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle on a coal-fired grid, this produces 41,000 kilograms of CO2. So, depending where you live, you could be producing more with your electric or hybrid vehicles. They continue with more research by the IFEU that shows the average kilograms of CO2 emitted used when they produce these vehicles. Production of a conventional vehicle tends to be around 4,000 kilograms of CO2, while a plug-in hybrid electric or electric vehicle tends to be around 6,000 kilograms of CO2. These trends are similar with other harmful emissions to the process of making these vehicles. So, if hybrid and electric vehicles aren't a solution to the fuel crisis, then what is? This brings me to my third point of an alternative solution. Gas and diesel vehicles are getting much better, but in the end they still burn the fossil fuels that we're running out of and relying on other countries for. So I propose hydrogen as an alternative solution. Hydrogen works in a similar way to a hybrid or electric vehicle. It uses electricity to power a very efficient electric motor. However, hydrogen does not use harmful batteries to keep this charge. Instead, it stores hydrogen in compressed tanks and turns it into electricity to power the electric motor. Jennifer Kurtz, a senior engineer and leader of technology validation, was quoted in an interview with NPR. For a fuel cell vehicle, the zero tailpipe emission is one key aspect. These vehicles can be filled in 3 to 5 minutes, and right now there are hydrogen stations available 24/7. And have a very traditional fill stop. This means that they're much easier for day-to-day use than an plug-in electric vehicle. They have a much longer range, and they can be refueled in a few minutes just like a normal car. And unlike hybrids that use fuel, the only emissions from a hydrogen vehicle is water or the water vapor. In an article titled Gloom and Bloom, The Economist predicts how different vehicles will be made by the year 2050. They predict a steady increase in the production of hydrogen fuel cell vehicles and as well a decline in plug-in hybrid electric and hybrid vehicles by the year 2050. With these facts, I hope I've proved to you my claim that current hybrid and electric vehicles will fail to be the solution to the fossil fuel crisis.
All right, well, you state your claim clearly, although the first time it comes out, it really sounds like multiple claims. At the end of the speech, I think that you've got a clearer statement of the way the proposition ought to read, and then that third point makes a little bit more sense. If you're making a claim of future fact, and your argument is that something other than these hybrid vehicles is the solution, I think that might be the way that you could phrase this so it's a claim of fact and it doesn't turn into a policy claim, which is what you're doing with that third point, advocating hydrogen as an alternative. What you want to argue is that hydrogen would naturally supersede the hybrid vehicles that are currently being used because that technology is superior and ultimately it'll produce the benefits that will drive people to that particular market. As long as CO2 is the only pollutant that we're concerned with, I think you build a pretty good argument, but I'm not sure that CO2 is in fact the only issue that people are concerned with when it comes to burning fossil fuels, and so that as a consequence, although I think you've got a pretty good argument here minimizing the value of hybrids in dealing with the CO2 issue, I think you might be ignoring some other key issues as well, and that is potentially problematic. All that, it depends on how the respondent decides to develop that particular argument. I thought you did a pretty good job trying to keep things organized, although sometimes the secondary points are just informational in nature. For instance, the whole first point is really just a description of what hybrid vehicles are. There's no inference that's being made there. On the second point that talks about the pollution levels, I think that you do a pretty good job on that. The real question is, if hybrid technology was more widespread, would that diminish the total amount of CO2 as opposed to just on the individual vehicles? Or, for instance, are there other benefits that come from them? If there are other benefits, for instance, people who prefer hybrids might not be buying hybrids because they're so worried about the amount of CO2 that they put out, but rather they're cutting their fuel bill substantially. And if that continues to be true, and if hydrogen fuel, for instance, is going to be expensive in comparison, then making a claim of future fact requires some economic analysis, and we're not getting any economic analysis here. So I think you've kind of mixed these arguments together in an interesting way, but not necessarily in a way that builds a claim of fact that is coherent. And so there's a little bit of overlap here and there between the points. All right, I'm going to stop there.